welcome to Voices to Dream. I'm here with the amazing Suzanne Mann.
Hello, everyone.
And I'm Dr. Richard Anthony Harris, as opposed to the actor Richard Harris or the
you're not him.
Thai cave diver guy.
No.
He's taken over Google, that guy.
Yeah, you definitely didn't
ridiculous.
Save the boys.
Anyway, I'm Richard Anthony Harris. So we're here today with an amazing guest. I would reckon one of the most fascinating guests that we've had. Maybe not known as well as some of our guests in Australia, but she should be. And she's becoming more and more known in Australia. And I think she's well known in another country, more so than her current residence. And I want to explore that relationship between a young person of brilliance who's come to a country as a young immigrant and, you know, how that's impacted on herself, her family, her culture, and what she makes of living in this fantastic country.
Are you going to tell us her name?
Oh, we are with Saadia Ahmed, who sadly is a resident of the other side of Australia, but Western Australia. But welcome, Saadia. Thank you so much for being with us, and I'm honoured that you're here chatting with us today. Thank you so much. I should also say, however, that Saadia is a journalist. She's well known in podcasting and just giving her opinion, basically. I think that's one of the best things that Saadia does, is give great opinions about sensible things.
I'm looking forward to hearing some opinions.
Yeah.
Welcome, Saadia.
Thank you so much, Richard and Suzanne. And thank you so much for such an amazing introduction. And I think this introduction has made me feel so good about myself. So many things that I would probably not think about. So yeah, thank you so much for such generous and beautiful introduction. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast.
Great.
So yeah, really looking forward to have a fun conversation with you both today.
Fantastic.
Beautiful. Well,
now,
should we start? As everyone knows, we always like to start with a bit of a check-in just to see how everyone on the panel here is going. Richard, how are you checking in today?
I'm pretty good. I've got two of my favourite people here with me tonight, so this is good.
He's trying to butter us up.
No, it's very nice. It's very nice. It's been a full day. I gave a talk to 16 people this morning at a Probus meeting, and they were great. It's fun. It doesn't have to be 150 or 3,000 people. You know, having a little audience is good. I think like voices. No, I shouldn't say that. We're building. Mm-hmm. So I'm checking in pretty well. Shall we go to Ms.
Saadia,
Ahmed?
I think so. How are you checking in today, Saadia?
Of course, I'm feeling great after this introduction.
Oh, happy birthday!
And I've had a good day, a good productive day at uni because I'm also a PhD student. So yeah, it was a good productive day, and we had beautiful sun here in Perth today, like most of the days. So yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, good.
Very
Sounds
nice.
like you're checking in pretty well.
Yeah, that's made us a bit jealous here because we didn't have much sun here today in Sydney.
It's better than average. Better than average.
Better than average. Yeah. It wasn't raining the entire day, so yeah.
Ms. Mann, how are you checking in today?
How am I checking in? Saadia, I don't know if you know, but I'm actually leaving the country in 10 days. Like packing up my whole family.
Another immigrant
leaving to live in the Bahamas, actually.
As you do.
That's pretty cool. That's so exciting.
It is very exciting, but I've been a little bit of an emotional mess, probably. I think I probably say that in my check-in a lot lately.
I think every check-in.
Yeah, yesterday I felt very overwhelmed all of a sudden. I've been handling it okay, and all of a sudden I felt completely overwhelmed and sort of paralyzed and felt like I couldn't do anything. So I did what every good daughter does, and I called my mum and I said, "Mum, can you come and help me, please?" And she's so amazing. She drove down today and she came and helped me. So I had a good day today, and So that's how I'm checking in. I'm getting there.
Yeah.
But
well,
I am. I'm really looking forward to talking to you, Saadia, because I love hearing brand new stories. And I actually was saying earlier that I have tried to look Saadia up a lot of times, and when I do, she's always speaking a different language.
It's called Urdu, I do believe.
Yeah, yeah,
So is
it's
Urdu the main language of Pakistan?
well, because yeah, it's a national language which most of the people in Pakistan speak. Not everyone, but many people do speak and understand Urdu. But then, because Pakistan is a post-colonial state and we have been ruled by the British for 200 years, so English is the official language, and it's also a medium of education. And therefore, when I moved here to Australia, everyone would be like, "Oh, you can speak in English." I said, "Yeah, because I went to English schools."
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So we're pretty bilingual, or probably trilingual. I would consider myself trilingual. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Talking of
Yeah.
stories, that's been a kind of major feature of your existence lately, Saadia. Can you tell us a little bit about your life as a storyteller?
Uh, this is a very interesting question because as I juggle lots of things at the same time. I write, I do these podcasts, I do theater, and I also do the traditional storytelling. So I consider myself basically a storyteller because I think, like, even when we're talking right now, we're actually telling each other stories about our lives. So story doesn't always have to be like, once upon a time and then they lived happily ever after. Like, they can be different forms of stories. So I feel that my creative expression is more of storytelling. And interestingly, as I mentioned earlier, that I am doing a PhD as well. Um, Whenever I have to, whenever there's a presentation or I'm writing something which is very academic and, of course, a bit dry, I can also sense storytelling in that.
Yeah.
So I think we're all storytellers in one way or the other.
Yeah.
Can I
So,
ask
yeah.
what's your PhD in?
My PhD is in media, creative arts, and social inquiry, which is a school. But my thesis is about gendered harassment of Pakistani women public figures in social media. So it's something related to human rights, social media, gender politics, a mix.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And now I know that Richard's going to know the answers to all of this stuff, but what brought you to Australia? And when did you come? When did you come? Are you out here with your family? What made you transition here?
I think, yeah, it was actually an immigration, a skilled immigration, which Australia offers to people from different parts of the world. Yeah, and I moved here from Dubai. Before Dubai, I was in Pakistan. So yeah. And by the way, Sydney was my first city in Australia. I lived in Sydney for 9 months.
She loves Sydney.
And I love Sydney.
So what took you to Western Australia then?
Work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the plan was always to move back after 4 months. But then COVID happened and nobody could leave Western Australia.
Yes.
Yeah. And now, because
Truck.
I've started my PhD and I have a life going on over here, so I think it's home for now.
So let's move away from personal life
Okay.
and on to what makes you, what drives you, in your life. I mean, you are a strong woman, strongly opinionated. You know where you want to go with things. Tell us about. I mean, obviously, the PhD subject is just kind of a big hint there. But what drives you? Like you've lived in these two different cultures. What have you noticed about the cultures? What have you, what do you want to change? Say even in Australian society, given what you've seen, and obviously in Pakistani society as well, which you're still very much involved with.
Well, I think if I talk about the drive because my area of interest has always been human rights. So I think social justice is something which drives me, and whatever I've done so far is related to human rights and social justice. And of course, like, because the dynamics are completely different in Pakistan and Australia. Australia is a first world country, Pakistan is a third world country, and where we're still dealing with lots of problems that probably people living in Australia wouldn't even imagine. But but I feel that this social justice is also an issue in Australia. There's so many things which are not talked about. There's so many things which are not spoken about. The narrative that we see on Australian media is, I think at times, it's very vanilla. There are so many layers within the society. There's so many things that need to be spoken about, but those things are completely brushed under the carpet. This is a personal opinion.
Yeah.
There's so much going on in Australian society. Like, for example, there are so many issues related to gender. For example, I live in Western Australia, and I know that in mining industry, there are many women working in the mining industry now. But then the discrimination those women are facing over there, has it ever been talked about on the Australian media? Nobody knows about it.
No.
And so many other things. So although the Australian society is seemingly progressive, but there's a lot more behind it.
Yeah.
Now there is a lot of talk about inclusivity. There's a lot of talk about about the original owners of the land, but what's practically being done for them? Sometimes inclusivity and diversity, these are simply boxes that you tick to look good.
Yeah.
So I feel that social justice is also an issue here in Australia, but we don't talk about it.
So is that your goal? Because you said you're doing media in that as well. So is that your goal to basically to highlight these areas and get discussions going about them?
Yeah, of course. Of course, that's my area of interest, because my podcast is also related to, my podcast is obviously, as you said, in a foreign language. My podcast is about the human rights issues in Pakistan, which do not get space on the mainstream media. Similarly, I think that there's so many issues here in Australia, as we discussed earlier, which are not there on the mainstream media, because the mainstream media in Australia is owned by two people. And we only come across what they want to show us. So I would definitely want to have the discussions which are neglected, discussions which are important, but ignored or neglected in some way or the other.
So you're going to be starting up an Australian version of your podcast as well then?
I have been wanting to do it for such a long time.
You've had people encourage
I have been wanting to do it for such a long time, but somehow, because there's so many other things that I'm doing on site. Working out the logistics and planning it and all of that. I think I've been I don't know if I should call it being lazy, or I should be
maybe it's called being busy.
Maybe it's juggling too many things at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. But we should keep an eye out. We should keep an eye out for Saadia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, of course, you would be the first ones to know this.
Saadia, what on the Pakistani side of things, how do you think that society, that culture is ahead of our society in terms of is there anything that sort of sticks out that's just better done in Pakistan compared to Australia?
I think better or worse is a very subjective term.
Yeah.
And we can talk about things that we see physically. Perhaps we can talk about the infrastructure, that we can say, okay, Australia's infrastructure is better than Pakistan. So many things, the opportunities that people get, or a lot of things that can be seen with the naked eye. Yeah. But better or worse, I feel, is a very subjective term. But if I talk about media, I feel that, because that's my field, so I feel that Pakistani media talks a lot about of course, there's a lot going on in Pakistan. The human rights violations have reached another peak at the moment, but at least people are talking about it.
Right.
It's not being of course, we're not talking about everything over there. There's so many cases which probably do not even make it to the mainstream media, but at least, people do question. And that questioning can also be because we have had this long history of resistance and oppression. So could be that. Yeah, but I feel that media is something which is different in both these countries.
Yeah.
And I feel that, and I also think that Australian society is very chilled out. People don't even want to watch those things on media. They don't want to talk about it. It's not only about media, it's about people, because it's such good life here. You go to the beaches, you have all the fun, you come back home. You don't need to question everything. So so I think it's both ways.
Yeah.
So and I am pretty ignorant about I'm very ignorant about what's going on in Pakistan at the moment. What do we need to know? What would you like the Australian people or any other listeners around the world to know about what exactly is going on in Pakistan at the moment?
Okay, now this is also a very interesting question, and I need to think about it. Okay, so one thing is that it's not a monolithic society. Like, every society has layers, so is Pakistan. So normally whenever we talk about Pakistan, or when we talk about women in Pakistan, it is just painted in one light, and it is perceived that all people living in Islamic countries live the same lives, but that's not the case. I'll give you an example. Somebody here in Australia asked me that, do women drive in Pakistan? Like, can they drive? They have the driving license or whatever. And I was like, in 1988, we had a woman prime minister. We have women in policy ever since. So this is something and it doesn't even happen in Saudi Arabia anymore. So so it's not a monolithic society. And of course, on the gender gap index, we are on the 178th number at the moment, which is pretty bad. But it does not mean that all Pakistani women are oppressed. They don't have the access to the education or all that stuff. So it's not a monolithic society. And I think this is something that I would want people living in Australia to know.
Fair enough. No, and I get that too. Yeah, because I mean, because I think that, as you say, sometimes we are so sheltered in our own little bubble, and you're not choosing to, it's whether you're listening to what's going on outside the bubble or not. Well, my daughter actually said to me yesterday, she said, if I listen to the Channel 9 or 7 news, I find out why that police car just went by. But if I listen to the SBS news, all they talk about is Russia, Mum. So
that's such an intelligent thing to say.
But she could.
It's so true.
She could see the difference there, and I sort of went, yeah, that's true. But she actually sort of said to me, is there somewhere in the middle, Mum? What can we listen to that's in the middle?
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
Now, Saadia, you were very kind to me 2020, and were one of my most fantastic beta readers of Imagine. And not only did Saadia answer questions that were supplied, but she actually wrote like a whole chapter on each chapter, and amazing feedback and amazing kind of detail, and a lot of great stuff. So I wanted to thank you personally for that input, and that was very much appreciated. We do a little segment where our sponsor, Imagine, comes up.
I'm still yet to figure out how the book is sponsoring us, but I'm not getting paid.
I think it's a very smart way of plugging the book.
It's not a plug, is it?
No, it's not a plug.
Okay, so I wanted to read a little piece from the first chapter, and just get your reaction, and just see what you make of it, and see. This is set in a mosque in Afghanistan. And there's a few funny things going on in this mosque because it's not really a mosque anymore, and it's transformed into a place of learning and a place of joy and a place of discussion. So I'll just read a little bit from it and just see what you make of it. So strange, he thought, to see a culture turned around so quickly. No more was there a question of women being inferior or beholden to the men. The obvious confidence and expectations of the females was exhilarating, and the men had thrown their cultural barbarity into the fire and had learnt that now an equal footing, total respect, and a listening heart created much better relationships and partnerships in life. This meant that their children would be brought up in a house of discussion, compromise, negotiation, and equal rights. Joe could not have imagined a more enlightening conversation than this. He was able to shed tears of joy. Mark and Amanda found themselves involved in an exploration of traditional tribal dance. I think you liked Amanda. I thought you thought she was
I did, yeah. And now I can recall Amanda.
Yeah. Before
Yeah,
long,
yeah.
they were wheeling each other about in a mad frenzy of twirls and steps, trying to copy the locals. Amanda was more skilled in keeping up with the syncopated drumming, while Mark couldn't stop laughing as exhaustion started to overcome his initial enthusiasm. They formed a circle and they go on and they dance and they learn the tribal dance. So, yeah, what do you make of that happening in a mosque in Afghanistan?
I think, yeah, because Imagine is about it is about a world that we would all ideally want to have. So yeah, and I think that Imagine, like, it's like a utopia. So something like this happening in a mosque would, like, at the moment, if you talk about it, that would be like, you would be sentenced under blasphemy.
Right.
So, but in an imaginary world, where the world that you imagine to be perfect. So yeah, maybe more, yeah.
So the idea of, you were saying that Pakistan was 178th in gender gap.
Gap index, yes.
This is a world where there is no gender gap in the whole world. How
Yeah.
do you kind of picture that in Pakistan? And where does that take us?
Yeah, I think it would be beautiful to have a world where we don't have discrimination on the basis of gender, race, religion, socioeconomic status, or anything. So, but then there's one thing that when I talk about Pakistan being on 178th number in the gender gap index, there are so many things that account for that, because these indexes are also designed on the basis of certain parameters. And those parameters, I feel that at times, those parameters are based on based on the Western standards and based on the Western sensibilities. And the Western sensibilities do not always, those are not always authentic in the global South. So yeah, I'm sorry I've taken this discussion again to my PhD, and which certainly this podcast is not about. So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, because I also see there are so many gender discrimination issues, which I see in the first world countries. Like, for example, what recently happened in the West.
Yeah.
So, like, the country, like, what happened with the abortion law. So, yeah.
So taking it to
women are being discriminated around the world. Yeah.
So taking it to the religious side, away from the gender, just for a sec, how does that? I know it's a sensitive topic, and I appreciate you not necessarily wanting to spill the beans on that. But how do you see that as a concept where people take the best of religion or best of spirituality around the world and not necessarily have to belong to a particular? And is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, as a concept?
I think being a Pakistani woman who also keeps visiting the home country, I would prefer not to talk about it. But yeah, in an ideal world, if
Let's talk
people...
about Christianity then. Should we get rid
No,
of
no, no.
Christianity?
I also do not. I also wouldn't say anything about Christianity. I feel that in an ideal world, people can retain their religious identities and yet learn to respect each other, yet just be. Like for example, Australia, we as I mentioned earlier, no, I haven't mentioned in the podcast. I've mentioned it to Richard before that it was Eid yesterday.
Yes.
So so why can't why can people have Christmas? Why can people have Eid? Why can people have Diwali? And learn to coexist.
Yeah.
You don't really need to erase your religious identity or your whatever identity you have. For example, I take pride in being a woman. So why do I need to erase my gender identity in order to be acceptable in whatever work that I'm doing? For example, we have stereotypes about certain professions, and women shouldn't be very feminine when they are in certain professions. Why not? Why can't we retain our gender identity and still give our best? Why can't we retain our religious identities? Or why can't for example, I come from Pakistan, and I would always be that is always going to be a strong part of my identity, even if I live here for the rest of my life. So people can have they can retain their identities and still learn to coexist and probably learn from each other, or and be a part of each other's festivals and everything.
See, this is it. I mean, personally, I find that so exciting. I saw that there was a message on Twitter or something today where someone said, yesterday was, am I saying it right? Eid?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yesterday
was Eid, but no one wished me happy Eid. And I sat there thinking, I don't know anything about it. I was thinking, well, I wish you'd tell me about it, because I would love to know more about it. What is Eid, Saadia? Is it something you say? Do you say happy Eid? I don't even know.
Yeah, you can say happy Eid, but we normally say Eid Mubarak. So Mubarak is actually an Arabic word which means have a blessed Eid, basically. So yeah, so we have Eid comes twice a year. So the first Eid that happens after Ramadan.
Right.
And that happens after Ramadan, like when Ramadan ends, it's Eid, and it's all about eating sweet stuff. So basically, we eat all day long, and after 2 months and 10 days of the first Eid, which is called Eid al-Fitr, we have this Eid, which is called Eid al-Adha, yeah, which happened a day before, and this is all about meat.
Oh.
It can be a vegan's nightmare, but it's all about meat. It's all about meat, and yeah. So there are 2 Eids.
So for both Eids, you say Eid Mubarak, though.
Yeah, we do.
But one is then you're having sweets, and one you're having meat.
Yeah, actually, I also have, because I have stopped taking sugar, which you should be very happy about it. Thank you.
Very
so
fit,
I have this is something that I should have mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. So I normally did not take sugar, but yesterday it was Eid, and although this Eid was all about meat, but I had lots of sweet stuff because I know I wouldn't be eating it for the rest of the year.
Okay.
So yeah, but it's more about meat this particular Eid.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel more Aussie or these days, or are you Aussie, or what are you?
Oh, this is a very interesting question. I think I'm Pakistani. I would always have that as a part of my identity, but then Australia is home as well. So maybe I have two homes now.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So I have two homes.
So, now that it just made me think, do you actually, so then at Christmas time, say for example, when you're in a country like Australia where everything ends up being Christmassy, do you do anything at Christmas time?
Enjoy the holiday?
Yeah, so it's...
Yeah, probably like, wake up a little late or go for a road trip or enjoy the holiday.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I love Christmas festivities. I love how everything turns and all the lights and all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do enjoy it, but I don't do something specific for it.
Okay.
And interestingly, I also do not like, even on like this time, because Eve was on a weekend, therefore we could do something. But normally we don't do much on Eve as well.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
because it's not a holiday.
Okay, so we're not going to see you on the beach in Western Australia with a Santa hat and like red and white bikini or something for Christmas this year?
Probably not. I would be sleeping in. I would be sleeping in because actually in Pakistan, we have around 8 months of summer. So we people from Pakistan, we're not very fond of summer because we have seen it all our lives and we do not have really good memories of summer. Therefore, and I know it's something very like non-Aussie to say, I don't really enjoy summer. And Christmas comes in summer. So
yeah.
I wouldn't be going out. I wouldn't be stepping out before 6 o'clock in the evening or something like that.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, and it's really funny because here in WA, the winter is wet and rainy and all of that. And in Pakistan and India, we love rain. Because in our case, rain comes after the summer. So it's a monsoon season where we have 2 months of rain. And rain is romanticized and it's considered something beautiful. So our love songs and many things are around rain. But when you start living here and if it's a wet winter, that's a bit different. But I still like rain. Yeah, I still like it because I think that's something which I have liked for 30 years. So yeah, I still like it.
Saadia, you're out there in the Western Australian community telling some stories. Can you give us a bit of an example of what sort of stories you're telling to the community?
Actually, when I moved here to Perth for the first 6 months, I wouldn't even go outside because I was working with a magazine which was based in Dubai, and I was working kind of 6 days a week, something like that. So I did not, and besides, I think mentally I was still in Sydney. And I used to miss Sydney a lot at that time. But then there came, when the pandemic happened, that magazine was closed, and I lost my job at that time. And then that was the time when I knew that I had to go out and explore what's happening here in Perth. So I came across this really amazing place, Centre for Stories. And this is how my storytelling here started. I've done many storytelling events with them where one of my storytelling was about how the pandemic affected me personally. Similarly, different stories, and the stories are mostly personal because that's the format of Centre for Stories. So we mostly talk about our own stories. And
So it's this place, Centre for Stories.
Of course, I add fiction.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's
of course I add fiction to it.
I missed that.
I couldn't hear what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Right. So of course I do add some bit of fiction to it.
Oh, right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So, well, is it is Centre for Stories a place where it's all about spoken stories, or is it writing stories, or is it getting up?
Writing stories as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's also about writing stories, and Centre for Stories is I think it's considering Western Australia, which is predominantly a white part of Australia, perhaps like in Sydney and Melbourne, you have it's more multicultural.
Right.
But Western Australia is a bit different in that way. But Center for Stories, they promote people who come from linguistically or culturally diverse backgrounds, are even like, people who are here from Australia. They encourage stories which are different, the stories that are not really spoken about. For example, things related to gender, things related to identity, stories of domestic violence, and yeah, different stuff. And yes, they're also into written stories because like recently, I have worked. I have given a piece for an anthology, which also is a story from my life. And they promote writers all the time. In the past, I've also done a residency with them, and yeah. So they do different programs for writers.
So, is there a way that our listeners can read some of your writings?
Oh, okay. Of course they can. Probably I can give you some links and you can add to the description in video,
Yeah.
description of this video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So probably if they Google my name, something
Mhm.
might show up.
Okay.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will check that out, and then I'll put that on there as well. Okay.
Now you got to ask the big question, Suzanne.
Oh, how Saadia?
It's going to change the world.
What would you do if you ruled the world, Saadia? If you ruled the world today, if the three of us were ruling the world,
Or even if you got a little suggestion.
yeah. Oh well, no. Well, we'll start with the big one, and then we'll go down to a little one. What would you do? What would you do to change the world and make the world a better place?
If I rule the world, probably I would just live a good life and be on a beach all day. This is what I would do if I was ruling the world. But if it's about changing the world, I think people who rule the world cannot really change the world. Change comes from people who are not ruling the world, because people who are ruling, yeah, their lived experiences are different, and change never comes from the ruling class. But okay, if I have that opportunity, probably I would want to make this world a more inclusive place,
Mm-hmm.
as I mentioned earlier, where people can retain their identity, where people can be who they are, which is not homogenized. And yeah, I think diversity is the beauty of universe. It is the beauty of life. We love different flowers. We don't love the flowers that look alike, or like, the nature is diverse. So yeah, I think I would want it to be a more inclusive place, because I won't talk about tolerance, because tolerance is bearing something. Inclusivity is different.
Yeah.
So, and therefore, when I see issues related to social justice in Australia, or social justice in the US, or Britain at the moment, or Russia, or India, or Pakistan, or whichever country we come from, most of those issues are related to this particular problem, because we want everyone to be alike. Everyone cannot be alike.
Yeah.
So yeah. So why can't we be who we are and celebrate the differences?
Yeah. Like it.
I do like that.
Very good.
I like that. Well, and how then? Okay, if we're looking at inclusivity, I guess what do you have some advice that you would give our listeners today as to how they could help to become more inclusive in their lives? What could our listeners be doing today, tomorrow, to bring that more into their or their families' lives?
In my opinion, living in a multicultural country like Australia, where we do come across people from different cultures, we do come across people from different nationalities, I think it's important to talk to people. When we talk to people, we get to know them. When we talk to people, I think that's the point when we are able to break the stereotypes. We are able to break the preconceived notions that we have about, like, people coming from different cultures, or people coming from different gender identities, or people coming from different socioeconomic backgrounds. Like, I'll give you this example, like in Pakistan, because Pakistan is a very classist society in many ways. And growing up, because obviously, like, when you're a kid, you have a limited circle. You kind of live in a bubble which has been created by your parents. And of course, when you are coming from a privileged household, things are different. So growing up, I always have this notion of people who came from relatively underprivileged backgrounds, that like there was a specific picture that I had in my mind. When you grow up, when you talk to people, you're able to break those images that had been fed to you by the society, by your parents, or whoever is controlling the narrative. So I think it's important to talk to people. Like we had this conversation so today. So like, even if you had any idea about women in Pakistan, and you did not have any idea about women in Pakistan, but now like probably you're going to think on those lines. So it's important that we talk.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's important to talk, I think.
Such a good answer. And to come up with that on the spot, I love it. And that's, I love it. That's what I'm constantly telling my children as well, to just have a conversation. It never hurts to have a conversation.
Exactly.
And the worst someone can say is, no, I don't want to talk to you, or and that's okay. Yeah. But if you don't start it, especially in this world of texting and everything just being in little snippets, to actually have conversations with people is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important. And I also think that we're living in the age of internet. We can talk to anyone in any part of the world. Like, we don't always need to go out and talk to people, or people who are there on the local bubble tea shop, or people who are there in your local cafeteria. So you can like, even if you're not talking to someone, you can know a lot about different cultures. Just follow Instagram accounts. It's so easy these days. And then I also think that people who are coming from different parts of the world, now the world has become a global village, and now I think that those boundaries and borders because people are moving to different parts of the world now. Like, for example, you moving to US. Someone else would be moving somewhere. I came from Pakistan. Like, from Pakistan, I was in Dubai. From Dubai, I was here. So it's also important for people who are migrating to other countries. For example, like I would say for my community, like, for example, Pakistanis are moving here to Australia. It's also important for the immigrants to assimilate in the new culture, to talk to people, not to stay contained within their particular communities, which I think is a huge issue in the immigrant communities.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It usually takes a generation, doesn't it? Or some people are a bit more enlightened and do it a lot quicker than that. But most kids of immigrants are just like everybody else. It doesn't take that long. But yeah,
as you say,
there are some exceptions to that really stick to themselves.
Yeah.
And I agree that's not a good thing.
See, I have a friend, one of my best friends from uni. It was Burmese, and I remember when she first invited me to a Burmese festival, it was the most fun, and it was just so enlightening just to be able to be immersed in a different culture. But it was only 40 minutes away, sort of thing. So I think that, as you say, if on both sides we're talking and we're learning about each other, it just helps everyone, and it really does help with that inclusivity.
Yeah. Of course, it helps everyone. Like, most of my friends here in Australia are local Australians. I have only, very few friends who are from Pakistan. But I feel that it has helped me evolve and grow a lot as a person, because what I get to learn from them is something that I would probably not get to learn from, someone who's exactly like me.
Yeah.
Of course, there's no one exactly like you. Differences over there. Differences also exist within your community. But I think if I was living in a bubble of my own community and not meeting people and not making friends, I think it would have been different. I don't think that in that case I would have been able to do what I'm able to do now, and above all, to be the person that I am today.
Yeah.
If I wasn't friends with people who are not from my culture.
Yeah.
And when are we going to be able to call you Dr. Saadia?
This is a very good question, and I don't know.
Okay.
Ideally, it
These things will
should
take a
be.
while.
Yeah, it takes a while. It takes a while, and there's no timeline.
Seeing as I can't,
Yeah.
seeing as I can't currently listen to your podcast because I just don't know enough.
You got to listen hard. You can
I'm
understand.
so
It's not that hard.
now I'm more motivated to start my podcast for the Australian audience.
Yes,
Yeah,
I would really,
I better have it.
I would really love you to, because otherwise I was gonna say I am very much looking forward to Googling and seeing if I can find some of your writings, because I think you sound like you'd have really interesting stories there, Saadia. I would really love to read them.
Thank you so much. It makes me feel so happy that you want to read what I've written. Thank you so much.
Definitely.
Now you've got 70,000 Twitter followers. I don't know how many thousands of YouTube followers. I don't know.
No way.
You
so
know, like it's not. You're not exactly no one knows you. But how will people get hold of you from all over the place? To I guess reading your Twitter account's interesting because you do cover what we've talked about a bit today. You're looking into really important issues. They're mostly related to Pakistan, but you do comment more broadly, don't you?
Aren't a lot of those not in English as well?
No.
Yeah, many of those are not in English.
No, because
yeah,
I looked you up. I was on Twitter looking you up the other day as well, and I'm like, can't understand these either.
You've done your homework well.
And I couldn't understand any of it.
No, I think you write in English.
I better do the same with my podcast. So yeah, it's like, you've looked up my Twitter, which is amazing. And I don't have 70,000 followers, by the way. I have around 65,000.
69.
So I hope
69.
65.1.
Really?
I saw this a while ago.
Just
I checked this a while ago.
About the same as I have.
You're right. You're just
Yeah,
started.
so
All right.
Okay, well, I have to put up your Twitter account. And what are your main ways to follow you? Twitter and
YouTube is the main ways, isn't it?
YouTube, Instagram.
yeah, whatever you want to put
Instagram.
there.
Okay.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put those up.
But I think that I'm like, as far as my work is concerned, there's more of my work on which I put is mostly it's on YouTube and Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah, and also on Facebook. And this is the only reason I have the Facebook account. I hate Facebook. But I'm on Facebook because I have to post my work there. I need to be on all social media platforms, otherwise I hate Facebook with a passion. Yeah.
And the novel's on the way?
Oh,
In your spare time?
I shouldn't be talking big in front of an author. I better eat the humble pie. I don't consider myself a fiction writer. I tried doing it once. I wrote a small novel, but no, not very proud of it.
Okay,
Yeah.
We'll see.
So probably creative nonfiction is my thing. Political commentary and creative nonfiction. Yeah, that's my area.
They're pretty decent, heavy topics in themselves. So you can stick to that if you like.
She sounds pretty busy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being that. Thank you so much for being that generous.
All right. Well,
letting me write what I want to write.
I knew it to be a little bit fiery, but it's been lovely. It's been lovely to see you and lovely to talk to you. And thanks so much for being on our little podcast.
So nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I had such a lovely time, and it didn't feel like a podcast at all. So you people are doing an amazing job.
Is it really a podcast?
We're just here for a chat, and luckily we have a few people who like listening to us as well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation, and I think, and while having this conversation, because I also have a podcast, I was thinking, I need to do something like this because my podcast is very structured. I was like, no, this is the way I should be, like, incorporating probably a few things that I steal from your podcast now.
Well, I did offer to be a co-host with you, but you rejected me, and Suzanne said, let's do it. So there you go.
Yeah, no, but I think I asked you. You didn't ask me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So the
Okay.
credit for the podcast goes to Suzanne now.
What was that? I think I didn't hear that, but I'm pretty sure she said that it's all that she really likes me better than you now.
Yeah. No, well, yeah, probably like 70%.
That makes sense.
70%. That
Okay.
I said the credit for this podcast goes to Suzanne because if you approached Richard to start the podcast, so yeah, you're the
Beautiful.
one.
Thank you so much, Saadia. We'll just end it on that note. Thank you.
We can edit this bit out.
I'm stopping recording now. Bye, everyone.
Okay.